Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Build with Stakki. This week, looking forward to speaking to Chris Lingenfelter, if I've said that right.
That's
Uh,
right.
Excellent. Head of sales over at LevelUp Leads. LevelUp Leads are an outsourced go-to-market and sales services business operating across the States and Europe. Chris, great to have you on. Do you want to maybe give a better description of what you guys do and a better introduction for viewers?
Yeah, sure. So we help companies that are looking to build out just their outbound functionality or build out a sales development team, whether that's to handle inbound flow or just go full outbound. So we do everything from building out their messaging, actually building out training processes for them, plugging into a sales development team, and then ultimately booking appointments and going to market for them.
Yeah, excellent. So with that, I'm sure you've got obviously wealth of experience in not just like building teams over the last several years, but
Mm-hmm.
the tools that go along with that and how that's changed over the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
hopefully, and based on our conversation you and I had last week, we'll be able to demystify some of the noise in the market at the moment and give people a better steer on how to build the right outbound team, and that
Mm-hmm.
also with how you guys approach it, as you just sort of alluded to, whether it be for inbound, whether it be for outbound, whether it be different regions, different verticals. There are different tools, particularly different data sets, different data options for each team. So people don't just need to go with whoever's shouting the loudest on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
excellent. Tell us a little bit about sort of the makeup of your team then. How many, I guess, SDRs or AEs do you have at the moment?
Yeah, so we have about a 50 SDR team right now. Um, we have we have CSMs, we have account managers, we have data researchers, and then we have upper management as well built into that. And kind of the aspect of what they do is, if a team is looking to build out this function or and use the technology, typically when they make their first SDR hire, they end up becoming this glorified sales secretary essentially. So they're having to also use the tools or be even part of the procurement process for which sales tools they should get on top of doing all their daily sales activities with really no management or internal feedback. And so they often don't last that long. That's why there's high attrition in that area.
Absolutely. You see it all the time now, especially with more and more tools coming into the market, is that people aren't necessarily sure maybe what like the SDR role is anymore. And so what happens is they're asked to do too much. And so then that leads to context switching, leads to distraction, leads to confusion, lack of focus on their day to day. And then
Yeah.
that is what's actually affecting the pipeline, not the specific tools, but how you're asking the SDR to allocate their time and execute their day to day.
Well, most of these tools just go underutilized anyways, regardless if there's an SDR even in the process. It could just be an AE team, could just be, a VP of sales and they own everything. They'll spend 50K on like a Zoom info license and only use like 1% of it. And so it's, you're kind of defeating your purpose there. It's like probably the biggest thing too, as you see with CRMs is CRM implementation is I would say 90% of the time they're not even used properly. And then why do you have it?
Absolutely. I regularly say, like, to customers, users of Stakki, people who are looking at what are the right tools. I always cut it back to walk me through your CRM setup now. And often it's just not set up to support the SDR's effort. It's set up for, it's literally called a customer relationship manager. So it's great for in sales cycle, maybe like late stage of the sales cycle, and then maybe the customers. But for consistent prospecting, taking notes, creating follow up that helps the SDRs compound their effort over time, it's just not set up for that. So often we just reshape their CRM before we even look at any of the tools.
Yeah. You know, one thing that we always see too is we have clients come into us. And I actually had a conversation just yesterday where I was talking to their head of marketing and VP of sales. And they were asking, well, which tools are the best for us to use? Because the CEO is looking to make a purchasing decision and they're working with us. And so they said, well, how do you look at all the tools that you guys use internally? Because we use everything. I mean, we use over 10 different databases. So all the way from the ones you would know, like Zoom Infos and Sales Intels and Apollos, all the way down to the more, I guess, obscure ones, like Lead Magic or something, and Clay, for example. And they just don't have an idea of how to approach it. And then when they go into these sales calls with these, the tech companies, they tell them everything that they want to hear, right? Which is natural. You want to win the deal. And they don't really come away with, how am I actually going to implement this internally? And that's why I tell them is, one, we have to start getting to work before I can actually give you any type of advice on how this technology is going to work. Because even with the database, is you'll spark some trends in databases that you can apply to other companies as you go. But every company is so wildly different on how they do certain things that you have to kind of look at each database. And this is why I always recommend companies like get a trial with them first, get them to pull sample lists first, so you can actually see if they have the data within your market before you move forward. 100%. And this is the same thing we do is we work with 10 different databases and we use the Clay APIs and stuff, but we're able to waterfall through and kind of see, well, which databases actually have the most and are going to be the most useful to us. So that way we can start using them at scale when we work with the client.
Absolutely. So important, right? And that leads us nicely on to, I guess, let's jump into our Build with Stakki segment, understand a little bit of the tools you're using and why you've made some of those decisions. So we can really, I guess, bring to life what we've pointed to for our viewers. And so let's pull this up then. I guess if we were to sort of start at the start, we mentioned CRMs. I imagine team of your size, you're probably using like a Salesforce. Would that be the right one, or are you using one?
We're actually on HubSpot, so we're using HubSpot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. HubSpot, great CRM. What then? You already mentioned Clay as well. Are there any other sort of tools from like a list building, sort of
Clay,
account research and stuff?
Phantom Buster is one there.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Apollo. LinkedIn Sales Nav, obviously.
Yeah. On LinkedIn Sales Nav, do you still recommend that to all of your customers? Or are you seeing that it's less of a necessity these days, depending on which data provider they might have?
I think it's good for finding exact title match. So it depends on your use case here. Like if you're using it because you're using it as an outreach tool for the in-mails or something, I don't think that's incredibly necessary. If you're using it, before people use it for like account mapping, don't think that's really necessary anymore to use Sales Nav. Now, it is a cheap option compared to like doing stuff like within Zoom Info, but you don't get all the contact data there. And so Sales Nav, I like to use because what we're doing is we're doing TAM analysis. And so if I'm looking for exact title matches, I mean, that's the best source. That's the best source you can do. So
great point. And like that's the nuance that I think a lot of people maybe miss now. Everyone, like I say, everyone thinks you have to have LinkedIn Sales Nav. It's been around for ages, so everyone thinks it's like, oh, everyone needs a Sales Navigator license. I do think there are scenarios where I say to some of our users and some of our customers, your team don't really need it. Not everyone in your team needs this license. And that's a perfect use case you mentioned.
And you can even take it a step further is your ICP on LinkedIn actively? And so if you are like, a good example of this is if you are targeting industrial manufacturing sector and you're targeting like project managers or people like on an active floor, in a plant, they're not on their computer. They're not active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so you're paying a premium for something to where 80 to 90% of your market's not even actively on. And so what's the purpose of it then? Right.
Exactly. And I've had that exactly with one of my customers who are a courier service. They need to speak to the fleet managers, the warehouse managers, and it wasn't the right tool for them.
Yeah, fleet managers don't give a shit about LinkedIn.
Exactly.
It doesn't change their job perspective like someone like in a sales or marketing role. We're all on here. If you're not on there, it's weird. You're probably not going to get your next job. Yeah. But, if you're a fleet manager, for example, they're not asking you, oh, where's your LinkedIn account? Yeah, it's just not something that comes up.
Exactly. So moving through then, you already mentioned 10 different sort of data providers. So there's
Uh-huh.
bound to be a few that you'll use, which we haven't got on here. But you obviously already mentioned ZoomInfo.
Mm-hmm.
What else are we using? What else is sort of?
Let me see your list. So we use, I don't see it, Cognism, better for Europe. You already have Clay selected. We use Sales Intel as well. We use selling.com. Sales Intel and selling have really strong industry codes. So if you're doing like NAICS codes, like very, very good there. But the reason why we use so many different databases, and this isn't to necessarily say our team has to, choose between these or audit all of them to figure out which one is, we need data, and each of these companies are strong and weak in certain areas. And that's why I say always pull the list for your ICP or have them give you a really extensive sample or at least a trial so you can see what they have. But data in my world is king, just because we're working with hundreds of companies, and I need to be able to look across all data providers and see what I can pull, which just leads us to have better campaigns. Yeah,
exactly that, right? And it's unique to sort of anyone who's doing a lot of outsourced SDR work. Probably they are probably some of the few companies I would still argue you probably want multiple different licenses from multiple different of like the top tier vendors, like a ZoomInfo, like a Cognism. Whereas most companies, I would argue they should come to you and say, hey, this is our ICP, this is where we're targeting. From your experience, having tested all of these tools already, which data provider, which top two would you suggest we look at?
So if I were to point a company into any area of what they should be doing, so I would say Clay is where you need to start, just because you can access a lot of different data providers. And you can waterfall through them all, and you're not going to be locked into that, $40,000 data provider contract. Now,
absolutely.
There are use cases depending on the team. So if this is purely like we need data procurement and we just want to fill our CRM, we already have our own systems to do like, sales enablement on like a sales law, for example. Clay is going to be beautiful for you. But you could make cases with ZoomInfo, because ZoomInfo does have powerful tools, especially with like CRM tracking, account updates, list updates. But you can build all that through Clay. It's just a little more complex. ZoomInfo is like straight out of the package, ready to go. Clay takes more setup. Far stronger tool and doesn't lock you into any long-term contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of the word you used there was like waterfall. Like that's becoming more and more of a hot topic, right? And everyone kind of thinks that's the best way to go. Typically, it can be. So if someone was, they didn't want to try the Clay option, they didn't want to fork out for your Cognism ZoomInfos, I'd maybe have them look at something like Full Enrich, connects 15 different vendors, or maybe a Better Contacts, both really good for HubSpot. Don't know if you've come across Upsell yet either, but that might be one worth you speaking to or checking out. Mark over there, really good data, and they're just setting up the ability to also set up your own APIs from ZoomInfo and from
they're on mobile data as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Loads of mobile data, really good. So ones to check out. Moving on from there, then dialers, engagement. What other sort of tools are you guys using? And is it worth us talking about intent, or are you sort of skipping over that and not doing load of intent?
We can talk about intent, but I have a unique perspective on intent. I think stuff like website visitors, that's good because that makes sense. It's actually coming to your website. Yeah. But the stuff that's like I don't even see it on there. So like a 6 cents. I mean, it's a joke. I'm sorry, it's like I'm not here to steer anyone in the wrong direction. It's a joke. Any of these data providers that have something that they say that, oh yeah, we're the best intent provider, and it's a little toggle on that you can do. It's a joke. We've done it with hundreds of clients, doesn't do anything. Now stuff like here where it's actually pulling like job trends, job postings, switching roles, those are good signals. Yeah, those are very good signals. Website visitors are good too.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. maybe it's a bias from being from an outsourced SDR background. Maybe there's a thing in that. I'm not sure, but the website visitors, that's unique to your business. That's good level of intent. And then you've got signals these days around like job changes and stuff like that, tracking champions. But you're absolutely right. Third-party intent or intent data sold by the likes of 6 Sense and others largely misrepresented what the data they were selling you. These people are in market. Are they? Often could be a few people there. Maybe they've Googled something. The IP address that they've matched to that company is harder and harder to match these days anyway. And if you're only targeting that data, you are often too late to the party anyway.
And if you had to make it simple without even getting too technical, is just take it from me. If it worked, I'd be using it, and I'd be the first person to say, yeah, this is amazing. It doesn't work, no matter what platform you choose. And if you're using that to make a purchase, because I know that's in a lot of the sales cycles for companies, I would just ignore that and take that out of the actual itemized list.
I would redirect most of that to more data, better data, and only focus your intent on your website visitors and the first party stuff. Love that perspective. So then if we move over to sort of your channel of engagement, I imagine, again, because you work with lots of different companies, you're probably covering a few different channels here, whether it be email, LinkedIn, or phone. You're probably doing all three.
We do everything, and so everything kind of builds together. Now we're very phone heavy, so instead of just like, for example, like what a typical SDR maybe make like 50 if they're really working hard, 100 calls a day. We're tripling that per SDR, but that's because we're just tripling down on the phone channel because that's the only channel you can't automate or use AI for. So it's just the most open at the moment. Has the lowest CPL, especially if you even take into like ad spend. And if you go to events, is getting on the phones and putting an SDR there to getting qualified appointments is just the lowest cost, like SQL right now.
I agree. Which dialer are you using for that?
We use several different dialers. Right now we use Orem. We also use one Trellis. Love Trellis. Don't see them on the list. Highly recommend they be on the list. Ajinka is the CEO over there. They are phenomenal, and they move fast. They have a great dialer.
I've heard some really good things about them recently. And I did have some conversation with, I think it was Dom last year. I need to get back in touch with him. One of the things I heard that's really good about Trellis is that it can sit inside Salesloft or Outreach, and you can dial from within those. I think
it sits on HubSpot now. You can sit it on a CSV. You can sit it on Clay. You can sit it on Salesforce. But it's more than just that. If I can just kind of hype them up a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
And they're not even our top vendor. Like Orem is our top vendor right now. But Trellis, man, they're good guys, good team. But they also adapt fast to the market, which is key, which is very key in sales enablement tools, and they do it well. And one thing that's cool about them too is you have your coaching AI platform, which their coaching AI platform is built into the dialer as well. It's very intuitive. So think of like, I don't see a hyperbound on here, but it's like a hyperbound essentially. And very strong tool. Bridge to connect within parallel dialers is always a common topic. Is how long does it take for you if you're doing like 4 dials at a time to actually connect you to that conversation? There's almost none, which is quite shocking. I've never seen that in a parallel dialer from Nooks to Orem or anything.
The interesting you mentioned, like they've got the coaching platform within the tool. Like more and more dialers are also building in like the conversational AI piece to help with the enablement. So the dials, the call recordings can go straight into like a coaching platform, and then it trains persona, and then you can do role plays with the AI persona and stuff like that.
Yeah, and even rolling in over to that, because this is something we're building out right now, custom for through our workspace. So we have a workspace that we use with clients that syncs with all of our systems. And I'm telling you right now, a dialer that would save us some time too is if you had detailed AI analytics. Now, right now, the AI analytics are all kind of baseline. And if you could really, because this is where AI is very good, is like just parsing through data and giving you insights into that data at a very large scale, like a Gong. Gong is amazing. Now imagine if you could have a Gong on your cold call that's just giving you just really good feedback and information. Okay, like this is working, this isn't working, or even like the titles that you're calling on, starting to spot trends in the titles. Like when you call an IT director, they don't give a shit. When you call a CTO, they care. You know, it'd just be good to be able to spot those, which they do have the capabilities. It's just about building it out.
Yeah, I think I've seen or I've spoken to a lot of these dialers who are working on that, and they've got some aspects of that. But you're right. I've seen one of my customers actually. It's one of my customers. No, it's the guys at Rocket Phone. One of the guys at Rocket Phone. He's kind of built something similar out. So he gets the transcripts because their dialer puts all the notes automatically, transcribes in real time, puts those notes in a summary into Salesforce for them. He's taking that, putting that into OpenAI, and then it's filtering through saying, okay, and it's putting it into, this bit worked with this persona, so it's going into that bit. And then we just need to start surfacing that back to you whilst you're live calling through your lists.
And a good example of this, so we built something out that takes the transcripts of our calls and puts it through like an agentic like lead scoring mechanism, essentially. And what I found out is we were working with a company, I won't name them, but they essentially do lead routing for companies. Like think of a mortgage company that buys a lot of leads and they pay a vendor to buy those leads, but some of them aren't compliant. Some of them are just bad data. And so how do you get that money back? And so they have a SaaS that kind of sits in between, you know, the vendor and the company to get your money back when those bad leads or non-compliant leads come through.
Smart.
And so we were reaching out to mortgage companies, and they had their ICP, right? They give us like, hey, we want to talk to heads of marketing, VPs of marketing, CMOs. Well, come to find out, there was a few biz dev titles in the mix in there, and those were great conversations. The marketing conversations were just kind of not really going anywhere. And based on that AI feedback, because there's just hundreds of calls being made, there's no way a single person could sit there and just take all that feedback in real time. But because AI spotted that, I was able to pull that information and say, hey, we need to start targeting biz dev titles, which, by the way, it's like a 2-to-1 ratio in biz dev titles to marketing titles in these mortgage companies. And now they're doing great. So it's just little things like that you're able to catch at scale.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's just a good example of using AI to help with some efficiency, to help target the human on the right area, not replace them and take over a load of work that humans should still be doing.
Yeah.
Cool. Are there any other tools then? Like I say, you're probably doing a load of multi-channel stuff as well, right? So you've got
there's a lot of tools here,
like a load of others.
Yeah, I mean Gong, Reply.io, we've used. Yeah, Gong I think is great if you can afford it. There is a competitor. There's a competitor that's pretty decent. It does I would say 60% of what Gong does, and I would say if you're on a budget but you want something similar, there's another one called Sybil. That's very good. It's a very good option.
Great point, because people love Gong, but you're right. The price tag rules it out for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
But Gong, how do you feel about the Gong Engage aspect, the multi-channel that it's now got? Or are you not using it for that?
We don't use it for that. It's more just like the analytics and calls as well. Pipeline stuff. But not too familiar with Gong Engage. I've heard mixed things about Gong Engage, but a lot of things come down to the team. Like you can have all the fancy tools and everything, but if you don't have the team to implement properly, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, exactly right. And before we move on, or make the point I wanted to make, any other tools that really stand out, which we're missing, which are key to?
Yeah, I would say Warmly is a great tool for website tracking, media engagement. That you can even do direct calls via your website if they get onto your website. Warmly is a phenomenal tool if you're looking just for more extensive website traffic. Tracking.
Absolutely. Goes back to what we were saying about intent. Website traffic is some of the best intent. So Warmly really helps you actually act on that quickly and engage with the customers. You can also, you can trigger automated outreach from it straight away, or they can get hold of you straight away through the website.
The only thing I tell companies, if you're looking to invest in something like this, you really need a decent amount of website traffic to really get some use out of it. It's only 30, maybe if you're lucky, 50% is being de-anonymized to where you actually can do that outreach to them when they come to your website. So it's just important things to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not for everyone. Excellent. We've kind of got a big stack here. A lot of tools.
So this is just a fraction.
Is it? Crazy. So, and that's why, for people looking, this is because you are running so many different campaigns, different services, helping different companies build their go-to-market functions, right?
Yeah.
And it just kind of, with that, it proves our point that we consistently try to make at Stakki, is that there are the right tools for the right use cases. Just because you've seen something on LinkedIn or someone's got to the top of the G2 ranking doesn't necessarily mean it's the right tool for you. And something you've come back to is just at the end there, is that the team you have in place and their ability to execute and their understanding of doing outbound or doing executing on sales and prospecting, that is going to impact your pipeline. So you get the tools that suit them and work for your market.
Yeah, and that's right. Is you can throw as many tools as you want, but if you do not have the proper team properly trained, it's never going to make a difference. As you can take, for example, an incredibly high performer, great work ethic, put them on just one tool like Apollo, and they'll be fine, right? You can't take a team that's not trained, that you don't know your product market fit, you don't know your approach angles in the market, or just how you're going to attack your strategy, get $100,000 in tech licenses and thinks it's going to fix things, or to add on like an AI agentic SDR and be like, okay, this is going to change the whole roadmap of the company. Never works that way. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly, right? And I think that's becoming more and more of the issue for a lot of companies who are struggling with their outbound. It's almost like they're trying to run before they've learned to walk. They haven't taught the SDRs about the product market fit, the ICP, gone through tons and tons of call coaching, help them actually understand how to generate those conversations, what the structure of a sales or an outbound cold call is. They've just focused on product. So they have all this product knowledge, but they never get past, intro, permission, lead with a problem. So they're never going to build anything. And that's what I think companies, why good outsourced services are still great at. You coach your team probably pretty relentlessly, I imagine, and then you layer in more tools to help them get more capacity.
Yeah, and it's also, it just doesn't even fall all on the SDRs, and that's another thing that makes us more efficient. Is we have people that are over building the lists. We have people that are over working with the companies at a higher level on the strategy. We have people that are actually doing the copywriting, and so it's all spread out to certain people that have more experience in those areas. So the SDR, because what we want the SDR to focus on is sales activity. That's really where they're going to push the needle. And I always tell teams too is, so there's two ways you can approach outbound or building out your tech stack is, but first you have to determine product market fit. Is you might have created a product, you might think it's the best product in the world, and you might have a couple clients. But if you can't go and have, I guess, relatively decent cold conversations and be able to get, even a percentage of those people in here, there's not going, as a founder, there's not going to be a lot of teams that can plug into that, whether you hire internally or you go hire the guru VP of sales on LinkedIn, or you use an outbound service like us. It's not some magic button that you're just going to press with either of these teams is going to change everything. And so you got to determine product market fit. If you don't have that, then you need to understand, if you're building out outbound, you're going to be testing a lot of things, which it is cheaper to do that. But I wouldn't recommend that if you're bootstrapped or you didn't get a nice funding round.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing I'd give, like a key ingredient, is time. Mm-hmm. If you're going to start trying to build an outbound sales motion and you want to get SDRs in the future, you need to give it time. You need to get, like, once, if we're talking, post product market fit, and you're ready to start going to market a bit more and putting some weight behind maybe a sales team, you need to be able to give it time. Understand that coaching and upskilling that team is an intensive process and takes time. And it's not what you see on LinkedIn each week. I'll do this now. I'll now do this. I'll cold call instead. Now LinkedIn instead. You need to give each channel its time, and time to coach that team to upskill. Chris, been great speaking to you. Love getting all your insights into, I guess, the state of go-to-market these days, the nuances between different teams, different markets, and the importance of understanding that there are tools specific to different markets, different teams, different channels. And it's find product market fit, then test the right tools, but make sure you're supporting and coaching that team consistently.
Yep.
If anybody would like to go and find out more about Chris and his team and his services, where would be the best place to find you, Chris?
Yeah, the best place to find us is just at LevelUp Leads. You'll find me, you'll find John, the CEO, there as well. And if you're looking for a partner, if you just need advice, you can always just, book a meeting with us and we'll steer you in the right direction. Maybe steer you over to James for some tech implementation.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Everybody, please subscribe, and follow us on YouTube for the next episodes and more advice from great sales leaders like Chris.